morning, everybody. Hello, it's Candace here. I am coming to you live from my home office here in Edmonton, and we are going to have a discussion today about, starting out on the right foot, making sure that you've got some agreement in place, some real basic financial information, and some really, really useful, awesome, relevant stuff for you. And I'm very, very pleased to have here today Lynn from Custom Bookkeeping. I'm going to let her give her a little to introduce herself and let you know just what she can bring to the table here before we start our discussion. So go ahead, Lynn.
Awesome. Thanks, Candace. Hello, everyone that's tuning in to do a little bit of learning today. So my name is Lynn. I'm with Custom Bookkeeping and Learn Bookkeeping Canada. So there's actually two sides to our business. Custom Bookkeeping, we do bookkeeping and taxes. Our niche is very small, kind of one-man shows or very small companies. That's really where we shine. And then the Learn Bookkeeping side teaches people how to do their own bookkeeping. So we are all about getting stuff together, getting started. In addition, I also teach business at MacEwan University. And so all this whole getting started stuff is confusing for a lot of people. So hopefully we're here today to clear that up a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is just perfect. I mean, we get I'm the practice support person at NHPC, so I get all kinds of questions from you, the membership, about this basic stuff. Where do I start? And do I need an accountant? Do I need to incorporate? How soon do I need a GST number? Things like that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I have a list of questions to ask Lynn, and I hope that you guys are ready to learn and ready to get out of this what you can, and please feel free to contact either one of us after this for more information, and we will have our contact information up here at the end. Okay, so we only have half an hour today, so Lynn, we're gonna have to be quick, but we're gonna get through
rapid
a
fire.
lot of fun stuff. Okay, without further ado, I'm jumping right in. Jumping right in with something. So what is what's the importance of having an agreement, for example, when you start working somewhere? An agreement, a contract, whatever we want to call it. Why is that important? Because I know a lot of our folks start out sort of on a handshake deal that I'm going to get 60% commission off of every treatment I do, and that's the extent of it.
Yeah. So really important, because the industry tends to, of health providers, just as a rule, tends to treat them like they're self-employed. So I'm going to hire your skills and service to do a job. The challenge is you have to always look at the way Canada Revenue Agency looks at it, because at the end of the day, everybody works to make money, right? And that money gets reported to CRA. So kind of in the scope of the business, they are the end all be all. So when Canada Revenue Agency looks at your relationship with your clinic or wherever you happen to be working, the very first thing they want to see is show me the contract, right? Show me the agreement. And there's actually, there's 6 criteria that you have to meet in order for that agreement to be valid. Because remember, you can't really override a law. So you can write all kinds of agreements, but you still can't override a law. So CRA has set out these 6 different things where if you meet, or the more you meet of these 6, then the more likely you are to be self-employed. The less you meet of the 6, the more likely you are to be an employee.
Right.
So they look at that all the time. But so the agreement is kind of where it starts. And then the why, I guess, is because if it's not done correctly, and if CRA is poking their nose at either you or the person paying you, there can be some pretty hefty penalties to pay on both sides, right? So you want to make sure always that agreement is really clear from a CRA. There's tons of other reasons in terms of how do you leave your clinic and what happens to the client files and all those things, but the agreement is what lays it out right off the get-go.
Right. So the agreement is, first of all, whether or not I'm an employee with you, or whether I'm actually a contractor with a fee for each service that I do. So that's the bare bones of it right there, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've seen some agreements where people write the craziest things, but they're not, like, they're against general employment rules. So even though you have an agreement, it's not necessarily a valid agreement, right? So yeah, really important that you know it and you understand it and exactly what you're signing.
Right. And I think too, just because your agreement is put in front of you doesn't mean you have to sign it. You know, to
Right,
work here, you have to sign this. Well, you're very
right.
excited about getting a job, you'll sign it and then end up in all kinds of trouble. You know, have the wherewithal, and I know it can be tough, but just to say, let me take a look at it, let me take it home, have somebody review it with you. If you want, have a lawyer review it with you too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's something that is really important because it can save a lot of heartache and a lot of money
I
going
always
down the
tell
road.
people, when you write an agreement, you write it like you hate each other when you love each other, right? So you
I
both
love
love each
it.
other. And because ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, this is not a lifelong relationship. This is an employment of some kind of relationship. So the health
Yeah,
practitioner is going to want to leave there at some point in time. And that's really when the trouble comes in. It's like,
it
what's the
is.
understanding about how do you leave? Because they're giving up their livelihood to move somewhere else and to kind of start again. So
Yeah,
super important. Yeah,
it
write it
is.
like
It's
you hate each other when you love each other.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
know somebody said, you know, we had to have an agreement because we always had, they called it the ugly couch agreement because, you know, they wanted to know who brought what into the business for one thing. They wanted to know when things were dispersed, how they were going to be, and they had a really ugly couch. And so that was one of the things that, so who gets the ugly couch? So
Yeah,
that led them to sort of figure out in their partnership how to, you know,
yeah,
figure out every other little thing around this ugly couch. So
that's perfect. Oh, that's
yeah.
great. I like that.
But yeah, write it like you hate each other when you love each other because things go awry and then it's a little bit too late then, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it sure is.
So another really common question we get is should I just sign up for a GST number even if I don't need it in case I need it? What if sometimes I don't make 30,000? Do I still have to do the GST? Give us a little bit of a GST breakdown.
Oh, goodness. Can I do this in half an hour? Can I do this in
Yeah, I
5
know,
minutes?
I
Okay.
know. Well,
Okay.
you know,
So
first of all, do you recommend somebody just get one because they started to work as a massage therapist?
maybe it depends. So, okay, let's talk about what you have to do. Now, GST can be kind of complicated, and some people think if I made 30,000 last year, then I have to register, and that's
Right,
not
that's
true.
not it.
Not true.
Yeah.
So the rule of thumb I tell people is look at the last 12 full months. So today is June 7th. So look at May and go back 12 months. And if you made 30,000 in the last 12 months, you've got to pay attention to GST now.
Right, right.
So that's a rule of thumb that I give. So that's, first of all, when do I have to? You have to when you've reached 30,000 in the last 12 months. That's the rule of thumb. Differs a little bit, but good rule of thumb. Now, why would I want to? So first of all, know that the second you register, you always have to charge GST, right? So no matter what you're doing, there's a GST component to it in your business. So you can't opt in and opt out. You have to, once you're registered, you want to. But here's the thing that I tell people, especially health practitioners that are in like they're working by themselves, maybe they're working from home. This $30,000, but when you look at your market, your target market, your customers, if you were to, let me do this. Let's say I said to you, I am a great bookkeeper. I'm going to save you tons of money on tax, and I give you a bill for $100 and there's no GST. You as my customer immediately know I don't make $30,000 a year. So how great am I really?
Yeah,
And I think health practitioners have the same challenge, right? You give somebody a bill for a treatment of some kind, and
right.
there's no GST. And anybody who's at all savvy around GST is like, I'm going to pay your bill. You don't make $30,000. So sometimes that's really good to avoid, especially if you're growing your business. So you can optionally register at any time. So you have to register $30,000 in the last 12 months. But sometimes there's really good reasons to optionally register to GST. Now, what I will tell you for anybody that's like, oh, I don't want that to happen, I'm going to run out. When you register for GST, you can register monthly, quarterly, and yearly. Just do the yearly one. It's the easiest because
Yeah,
your books have to be all caught up if you say monthly, you have to make sure all of your bookkeeping is done monthly, right? So make sure you choose yearly. That's kind of the tip if you decide to register.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I did the same. Otherwise, I mean, quarterly was too much even, and you should, yeah,
Yeah, it really
yearly
is
is
for
good.
most people.
Because I think it's not just GST that you're collecting, it's also the GST that you pay for the goods and services that you buy, that you use in your business. So
Yeah.
you're buying linens for your room, you're buying if you need any oil or lotions or things like that, any kind of equipment, office equipment. You're also paying GST that you can offset against what you're collecting. And
Yeah, you
so
get
it's
that
it's
back.
not just
Yeah.
about people paying you for each of your services. It's about the rest of your business collecting and offsetting too. So there is a lot to it.
And really important that if anybody is starting a clinic or something where they're going to be paying huge expenses in renovations, you want to make sure you're registered for GST before any of those registrations happen. Not sometimes people do that and then they wait until their clinic opens and their business gets started, and then all the GST they paid on the registrations is lost. So you want to make sure the second you say, oh, I'm going to open a clinic, I'm going to do painting and renovations and all that, register for GST right there and then.
Right, yeah, because you can get some advantages in there as well.
Yeah, you sure can.
And on the same topic as this is, there has been talk in the industry for, I have to say, 25 years now, and you may have heard this as well. But once there is X many provinces that are regulated as a health profession, then the application was going to be made to the Minister of Finance so that massage therapy was going to be GST exempt, that we wouldn't have to charge it.
I've heard that
And
for 20
you
years
know,
now.
there's really been no movement on that, even though we're at our threshold for application, but we haven't heard anything back from the finance minister. So it's still, we're still all collecting GST. So, and I don't know if they're going to turn. It's hard to say no to taxes when you're in the government position. So who knows whether
Yeah.
they will.
Can I make one more side comment on GST? Just as
Yeah,
a warning, I won't go into a lot of detail.
yeah, for
But
sure.
if you have practitioners that have a GST-able service like massage and a GST exempt service such as acupuncture, and if they have more than one, that is you really got to pay attention to GST, right? It's a complicated situation. And I just want to throw that out there for anybody that is doing two things or has a clinic with two things. It's really important you find out the GST rules around when you're mixing services like that.
And this makes having somebody like you, or a business like you, absolutely necessary for people that are in a complicated situation like that.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
don't do it alone. Get yourself a bookkeeper, a professional bookkeeper, to help you out with these things. So don't I think when you're starting out, you don't have a lot of money, of course. You're trying to earn money rather than spend it out. And so sometimes you think you can do it all on your own. But a little bit in the beginning could go a long way to save you
A long way.
yeah, pain, heartache, and money going out the window if you don't set yourself up from the beginning. So, look at custom bookkeeping and learn books, and just, it's not ever going to be a waste for you, for sure. Here's another thing that we get. This is a real general question again, but is there at all a general rule of thumb for how much money I work for myself, I work out of my home, how much money should I put away each month for my own CCP and taxes and stuff at the end of the year? I don't know whether I
Oh,
should put 20% away or $500 away, or what's
that's a
some
really
sort
good
of rule of thumb
question.
there?
I love that question. Well, I love it because it's complicated, but yet it's kind of simple at the same time. So the taxes that a self-employed person pays really consists of three different taxes. There's the federal tax, the provincial tax, and the Canada Pension Plan. Most people do their tax return and they see only one number and they just, that's what I pay. So whatever your taxes are, whoever your tax professional is, what you should be doing is saying to them, what's my number? Meaning not the refund or what you had to pay, not that at all. you want to know what your kind of top number is of what you owed in comparison to what you continue to owe. And that might be 15%, it might be 20%, it might be 25%. And everybody's different because the tax situation is different,
Yeah,
right? So if
it
you
is.
have children, that makes it different. If you invest, that makes it different. If you have a spouse, it makes it different. So what I would normally say to people, if you want a general, you put 25% away of every dollar you receive into your bank account, right? 25%, you'll be safe. 15%, you'll be happier at the end of the year than not, right? So
Yeah.
somewhere kind of in that range, but at any point in time, you could call your tax professional, say, what's my number? What was my tax percentage for last year? And if your folks don't know, you'll have my contact information. Give me a call. It's honestly not too long to take. And then you'll see, was your number 15% or was your number 25%? And then once you have that number, that's of every dollar you receive. So if you get $1, you put 25 cents in a different bank account, and that's what you put away because you're going to spend it on taxes eventually. Mind you, if people get really good at write-offs, they can reduce that number, right? But you got to be good at it. Like you got to know what to do. So 15 to 25 is kind of the going-ish rate for the most of the population.
Excellent. That was a number that is sort of, bandied about 25 to 30% if you want to be really safe and have a little cushion, and then that's maybe forcing you to save a little bit. It's a forced savings. But yeah, I like that. That's a reasonable number, and it might seem like 25%, but really, it's a lot better to do it that way than at the end of the year, all of a sudden you need to come up with, $4,800 for everything.
And I may say, the more organized you are and the better you are at all your receipts and stuff, the less you're going to have to put away. If you're not paying attention to your receipts, if you don't have a separate bank account, if you're not doing those things, then you're going to be up way 25, sometimes 30%, right? So the more organized you are also makes a difference to how well that tax return turns out, right? The number one thing to save money on taxes is the behavior of the taxpayer, right? What is their behavior? And then that helps affect the numbers. Believe it or not, it's not an exact formula, which would be nice if it was, but yeah. So just kind of think, I'm doing the right things or I'm not doing the right things. If you're not doing the right things, it'll for sure be more 25 to 30%.
Right. And I think some people have an idea that, and definitely what we found over the last 2 years was more and more people moving home to work out of their home. So leaving a clinic, leaving somewhere where maybe there was more public, they had more control over their space as far as cleaning and disinfecting, they felt safer, more control over just who was coming into their space or not. So that definitely influenced people. But there are advantages, if you understand them, with having a home business. So is there, can you operate a home business when you don't own the property? Can you still, have a home business out of a place you also pay rent on? Can I mean, you'd have to get the approval from your landlord and things like that, but just because you're working at home doesn't mean everything you do at home is now written off, I guess.
Well, it's interesting. So the first two criteria that you have to meet is, number one, you want your landlord approval, obviously.
Yeah.
And number two, that most people don't think about. Now, this is regardless of whether you own your home or you rent. You must call your insurance company and tell them you have a home-based business.
Absolutely.
And I am shocked at how many people don't do that, but it is like, that is a critical piece. Now, sometimes your insurance company may say, we don't cover home-based businesses and rentals. I've heard of that scenario,
Yes.
But probably more so if something happens, you have to have that declaration to your insurance company, right? So if you haven't told your home insurance company, call them today and do that. Now, even if you're renting or whether you own your home, from a write-off standpoint, you can still write off a percentage of your expenses. Now, a really good average is 10 to 15% of your home base. So if you own, you've got your interest on your mortgage, your property tax, your insurance on your home. And if you rent, it's the same percentage, but it's just on your rent and your insurance and your utility bills, right? So a little bit different, but from a write-off standpoint, from CRA standpoint, really not a lot of difference. It's still a percentage. 10 to 15 is about where the sweet spot where most people land.
Okay, so 10, yeah, I think some folks are under the impression that, you know, everything is, that it's gigantic advantages to working out of your home as far as, you know, your tax situation is, but it does chop a little bit off for sure, but
Yeah.
not a huge,
Yeah.
huge chunk.
Not a huge amount. No.
No.
A little
Excellent.
bit, a little bit. If you have a big mortgage, right? You know, I mean, if you're carrying a big mortgage, that interest can be mind-blowingly big. So sometimes for sure it can add some stuff.
Right. Now, here's another question about, and I get this quite a bit too about what are my rights as a contractor with my my where I'm working. Um, you know, if they start imposing on me more of the employee sort of rules. Like, you know, as a contractor, we think we set our own hours, we set our own pay or our own fee for service, we set our own this. But I'm working somewhere with other people who are only open so many hours a day, so that controls when I'm open. Who I pay a certain amount of my um, commission to, or part of my each of my fee for service to for things like laundry soap and the receptionist and all that. So is there you know, I know that there are you know, you're really a true contractor, or sometimes you're more of an employee kind of contractor.
Yeah.
That's it.
And
It's very gray.
this is so important, and it's actually less gray than people think. So there's a publication, I think it's a CRA, I think it's RC 2042, I think it's that, or 4110, one of the two. Anyways, there's a publication CRA puts out that gives you 6 things that you have to meet to be called a subcontractor. So the publication is called Employee or Subcontractor.
Yes.
In this industry, the more of those 6 you meet, the more likely you are as a contractor, and the less you don't. There are some deal breakers though. So one of the deal breakers is if you are guaranteed money. So no matter what, we're going to give you $1,000 a month, right? That's a deal breaker. You have to be able to set your own hours. So if they say Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., that's kind of a deal breaker. That's not really a subcontractor one.
Yeah.
Another one is, as a subcontractor, you should be paying your share of the laundry. You have to buy your own tools. So whether the clinic supplies the lotion and you pay for it, or you have to buy your own, or whatever needle, whatever tools you're getting, you have to show that you are providing your own tools. So that's a bit of a deal breaker as well. So kind of the more things that you can show as an independent, the more likely you are as a subcontractor. And CRA does have the right to say, I'm sorry, your working arrangement doesn't cut it, right? So you're an employee, and that's when there's really big penalties if you are assessed. So even though you've signed the agreement, you didn't make the agreement, but you signed the agreement, you still get assessed some penalties and interest in that process. So make sure that you're meeting as many of the 6 as you possibly can. Another one, which is interesting, is the non-compete clause. So sometimes people say you can't work anywhere else, but that's a really touchy subject too.
Yes,
right?
it is.
Because, that needs to be looked at as well.
Yeah. Have you heard of, or can you give any light on the a dependent contractor? Have you heard of that? Where, you know, I'm a contractor in that I'm not your employee, but I'm really dependent on you, this one business. So
I
you're a
think
dependent contractor. And I don't know where CRA sees that, if that's just something that's sort of new out there that somebody made up. I don't know, but I've heard it mentioned.
Yeah, they have an allowance for what's called a personal service, which is kind of in between. You're not an employee, but yet you're treated like an employee, but you're self-employed. And it's not a desirable place to be from a tax perspective. There's some higher taxes that are assessed sort of in that process. It's available, but CRA is kind of, I think it was, CRA is more, are you an employee or are you a contractor? And here's the publication which lays it out.
Yeah.
So in my experience dealing with examiners who come out to look at the payroll of companies, they don't just look at payroll, they look at all the money dispersed, right? So a CRA person will come out and they'll say, oh, you paid all of these people. Were they a payroll or were they a contractor? In my experience in dealing with those, they either say employee or they say subcontractor. They really don't have this
Okay.
middle ground. It's not very popular, I guess. It's there, it's just not
Sure.
used often.
Sure. Okay. So it's not something that any of our members could rely on at this point, sort of thing. So,
I would say no. Yeah, if you're working in an employee situation, you should be an employee and all the stuff which
yeah.
comes with that.
And it's a surprising number. I mean, customarily we work in a with a contract or a verbal contract or some sort of agreement to say fee for service. You give the service, we'll charge this much and give you 65% of it, and that's the end of it. So there's an astounding amount of people who own clinics or spas or anywhere else that are people, athletic facilities, anywhere else that our natural health practitioners may work, that they don't ever think of having an employee situation. And I don't know why, is it really onerous for people? Is it really onerous on the people that own these businesses to hire rather than just say, work here when you want?
Well, there is, of course, employment, like there's EI and there's
Sure.
CPP and all of that cost. So when you look at the cost of hiring an employee, it's roughly about 17% over and above whatever you pay them. So if you pay them $10, it's going to cost the person hiring about $11 or yeah, well, 17%, yeah, $11.70, right? For
Sure.
that same thing. So there's more costs. There's a workers' compensation of whatever province they're in, there's CPP, there's EI, there's benefits, and then they have to follow all of the employment standards rules for that particular province. So certainly having people on payroll is more, it's a more egregious process. Like there's definitely more to do, and it does cost more for them to have that. So either way, CRA doesn't really take that into consideration. They really do look at those 6
Sure.
items and they say,
Yeah.
which one of these is actually applies here.
Yeah. And I think that, in so many of the situations that our people find themselves in, they are really acting in an employee. They're really more of an employee than an independent contractor.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking of contractors of, well, we had a contractor come and paint the house, but he was also painting 4 different houses at the same time. So he has a contract with us, a contract with,
That's
Joe
right.
down the street and that sort of thing. Whereas myself, when I was working under a contract with as a massage therapist to a physiotherapy clinic, I was only there. I was only there. I had no other job. But I was a contractor. I wasn't their employee. But,
Yeah.
I definitely would have failed those 6 things,
Yeah.
They supplied a lot of the stuff. They supplied the equipment. They, and it's not about where do your customers come from. That doesn't really have a
That's
lot to
true.
do with it.
Your customer is the clinic, right?
Right.
Whoever pays your bills, that's your customer. So it's not the person you're doing the service on, it's the clinic you're working for. And when you look at it from a tax perspective or a CRA perspective, that's your customer, is the clinic.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I don't see what other question I have here for you. Right. I think that what I will have to get up on this afterwards is that, contractor versus employee. And I know the Alberta government has one out as well, and it's really good. And it's in really simple language. It's excellent. It's really good to figure out. And, it would be tough for you. I know it would be for me to say, hey, guess what, guys? You're actually treating me more like an employee. Are you interested in hiring me like that? How can we make this work so that we're both not going to get in trouble further down the road, because I have seen it where there's been some major financial penalties that have come in, and it's a
Yeah.
big hardship.
It's and sometimes clinic owners, they do their best, right? But sometimes they write agreements that are contrary to what CRA or the employment standard says. And that's always going to be problematic. Even if you both agree on it, it's still problematic, right? If I could just say one thing about in terms of costs, I know we're running close on time here, but
Yeah.
Canada Pension is a really important one for people who are self-employed.
Yes.
It is currently 11.4% currently this year of what you put into your bank. Okay. So if you make $10,000 ish, I mean, that's a close enough formula, then the government's going to be looking for payment of $1,000. So, if you only make $10,000 a year, you're like, I don't have $1,000. It's not a lot of money. But they really need to pay attention to the CPP, and it can be reduced through organization and writing things off. But that number continuously goes up every year. So this year it's 11.4%. Next year it might be 12%, 11.7. I don't know. I mean, we never know until the end of the year what it's going to be.
Sure.
But I just wanted to bring that. That's just such a big thing for self-employed people, and it catches them off guard. At tax season, every year I have people that say, how is it possible? I owe so much money, and it's always in the Canada Pension Plan. It's
That's
just,
right.
it's such a
And
big
that's
amount.
money that, we get back, that we, when we're at the age to apply for getting that pension, that's when we get that money back. So it's not like you're just giving it away, and I know that people say, oh, there won't be anything left when I get there. Well, I've heard that for 30 years now, and there's still money
Yeah.
there. So I don't think, I don't
Yeah,
think
I
we're
agree.
gonna
Can you
run out.
imagine a society where they just say, here, 1 million seniors, you're on your own, right? Like it
Yeah.
wouldn't happen. So there'll be something there. It may not be as it exists today, but
Yeah,
there'll be
true.
something for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we've put the link to your website up for the Facebook participants today.
Oh,
So I
great.
hope, you guys feel free to reach out. Lynn is so nice and easy and fun to talk to, and I'm sure anybody who works with her is the same thing. So
Awesome. It's been
yeah.
great. Thank you very much, Candace. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think, just these quick little things to just get people thinking about it,
Yeah.
and to hopefully, set things up sooner than later, because again, that heartache of money and stuff that comes at the end of the year, or if
Yeah.
you just sort of choose to ignore it for a couple of years, it gets even worse.
Yeah.
So
A year
don't
from
bury your
now,
head.
you'll wish you had started today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I love it. So we'll wrap things up. And again, I want to thank Lynn from Custom Bookkeeping very, very, very much for joining us today. And I hope that we can do some more work with you in the future, and set something up for our members to do some more real good learning with you.
That sounds
And
great.
okay, so
That
thank you.
sounds
I'm going to sign off from the NHPC headquarters here in Edmonton, and have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you very much for listening and tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.